A bit of light relief before the break. I am going to talk about data. My favourite subject. One thing, carrying on the tree analogy and seeing the wood for the trees, one thing we are not short of in this new world is data. There is a lot of it. And what I'm going to talk about is how do you make sense of it? How do you actually take all of this data and actually work out what to do? Einstein was not famous for his retailing, but one of his, I'm not even sure if this is a quote, but it was hanging on his wall of his office. For me is the key. How do you distinguish between, to turn data into information and information into action? And this is the old world. I think what is notable about the old world is that location equals footfall. You could put a store in a location and almost guarantee footfall. If you had the right range, price and availability, you could turn that footfall into sales. Customers were united with a location, and retailers, successful retailers, could think location, location, location. If you got the right store, the right size, the right place, it was a recipe for success. In this new world, customers are unshackled from location. A customer anywhere can shop from anywhere. And this may seem obvious, it may seem trivial, but for me it represents a profound shift. Retailers, people selling, can no longer think location, location, location. They have to think consumer, consumer, consumer. And the key reason is that in the old world, you could grow by opening more stores. But in the new world, you grow by acquiring and retaining customers. Simple to state, relatively hard to do, and this is a sort of an anonymized version of a retailer that had stopped growing. And we looked at why had they stopped growing, and what these bubbles represent is that the top bubble represented the number of customers who'd made one purchase from this retailer, and then the second bubble, number of people who made a second purchase, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. And unfortunately, by the time you got to an eighth purchase, they'd lost about 95% of their customers. And they'd stopped growing, not because of the market, not because of really anything other than this. And fundamentally, if you don't understand this dynamic, if what is going on is you are still operating your business in a world that makes sense in stores, you really are in for a very, very shaky future. So with this as a context, what do you actually do? Well, for me, there are three pieces to this sort of data puzzle. And they're all amazingly beginning with D. The first one is digest. How do you quickly understand whether business is good or bad? Number two is diagnose. How do you understand what's driven performance? Where do you place your efforts? And number three, what do you actually do? How do you manage? How do you lead? How do you understand whether actions have been taken or not? And a critical concept, I'd love to take credit for this. It's an Amazon concept that comes from engineering and control theory. Is to distinguish between inputs and outputs. And inputs and input measures are measures of things that you can actually control. So as a retailer, whether that's price or delivery or availability. And outputs are things that happen as a consequence, whether that's sales or conversion rate or average order value. And the key, we'll see, is to distinguish and really be very thoughtful about what is an input and what is an output. Bezos writes letters to his shareholders every year. I'm a big fan of Amazon, spent a lot of my time doing industrial espionage. And this is a quote in the public domain from his letter in 2010. Absolutely fascinating. This is as close to the core DNA of Amazon as you could get. They basically say that we care about making money, but we focus our energy on controllable inputs. And one should take note of this. Amazon is 30-odd billion turnover. It's probably 10 times bigger than the second biggest online retailer in the world. And what does this mean in practice? So people I know who work at Amazon say they sit in their weekly trading meetings and they talk about four things. They talk about their range versus competitors. They talk about price competitiveness. They talk about availability, and they talk about delivery on promise. Are they delivering on time? And I say, do you talk about conversion rate? No. They say you can cry about it, but there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. They spend their time talking about the things that you can walk out of a meeting and do something about. And more specifically, when they're talking about price competitiveness, their measure is price competitiveness weighted by page view. It doesn't matter if you're price competitive or products that customers aren't looking at. They are measuring things that matter to customers. You would say, well, isn't that obvious? But I have to say, I work with about 40 different retailers, and I have never yet met one who can honestly say that they are input driven. So what is the difference in this world between physical retail and online retail? Well, the whole structure of physical retail makes it relatively easy to work out what's happening. If I've got 100 stores, I can look at my store like-for-likes, and if all of my stores are up 5% except for one, I can say, well, there's a problem in that store, and I can visit the store, and typically, a good retailer, you can work out what's going on. Products, life is binary. It's either sold or it hasn't sold. You've either got too much or too little. And hard-nosed retailers will tell you, if you've got too much stock, you mark it down, you get rid of it. The nature of retail is it's a lot of fixed costs. You pay your rent, you employ your staff, and consequently, and this is the key, is that outputs tell the story. So I can look at like-for-likes, I can look at sell-through, and very, very quickly understand whether business is good or bad, and whether I've got a problem across my whole store portfolio, whether I've got a problem in a particular store or in a particular category. And what retailers tell me is that it is true to say that issues are relatively easy to identify, but often very hard to solve. I might have stores in the wrong place, they might be the wrong shop fit, they might be the wrong size, but at least actually getting your head around retail is relatively straightforward. The online world is very, very different. The digesting problem is that you have data from product and marketing, the website, customers and operations that are all interconnected, which I'll come on to. So diagnosing the issue is really very, very challenging. And give some examples. When I was CEO of figleaves.com, our site conversion rate was very volatile. And I wasted hours, weeks and months of my life staring at web data trying to understand what was going on. But it turned out the issue was nothing to do with that. It was all about product availability. We had 50,000 SKUs. We thought we were 92% in stock. But again, it was the wrong measure. The right measure was what was our availability weighted by page view. And actually, when we started looking at what products customers were looking at, we were 70% in stock because we kept bumping in and out of stock of our best sellers. So we thought we had a site problem and we had a product availability problem. I was talking to one of the vice presidents at Barnes & Noble in the US, and they had a CRM problem. So they thought huge numbers of customers making a first purchase, very few went on to make a second purchase. They hired CRM experts, marketing experts, they spent millions of dollars looking at marketing. It turned out the issue was nothing to do with that, it was operations. They were telling customers they get their books in 2 days, and they were turning up in 4 days and 5 days. Thought the problem was one place, but it wasn't. I was working with a big electronics brand, again, spending huge amounts of money on Google, not converting, their VP of marketing sitting with the VP of marketing at Google trying to work out how to optimize their suite of keywords. Again, issue nothing to do with marketing, it's pricing. They were systematically charging, they were a brand owner, charging 10, 20% more than Amazon and pure players. So the diagnosis is really very, very, very challenging. And then finally the doing, again, you know, in physical retail you can walk the store, you can see what people are doing, you can see if staff are actually productively occupied. But in an online world, you're staring at staff sitting in front of computers and playing with Excel spreadsheets. It is very, very, very hard, if not impossible, to actually know whether people are doing an amazing job, an okay job, or a horrible job. So the challenge in the online world is often the invoice the inverse of physical retail. It's very, very hard often to identify good online. So they understand clicks on furniture probably $150 a store, and they've tracked it back from this car. These things actually are fundamental to how you build your own understanding what the road is fundamental. So, it's analysis, and you showing orange provided a different orange are customers in 2006. So you can see that in 2011 you are getting sales strata effect. Sales built up, customers who acquire all the and clearly the more business you can be getting from customers in previous years, growth is. You know, if you're going into no existing are going to be happy. And the more you have to acquire new customers, actually become fundamental to how you build and run an e-commerce business. And then things like conversion rate. You know, often CEOs will ask me, you know, what's a good conversion rate? To which I'll either reply, it's just a bad question, or somewhere between 0 and 100 is common, because the challenge is all of these metrics are interrelated. Philip Green, you know, incentivized, I'm not sure if he still does, but and he's not known for being, you know, a bad retailer. But the people running his online businesses were incentivized on average order value and conversion rate. So they kept running free delivery promotions, very bad for the overall economics, and they all hit their numbers. This is possibly the most important analysis a retailer can do. In a world that is driven by growth and by customers, in a world that's driven by customers, understanding what's driving your growth is really fundamental. So what this picture is, it's called a sort of cohort analysis, and you can, every different shading of orange are customers acquired in a different year. So the darkest orange are customers acquired in 2006, the next lighter is customers acquired in 2007, and so on. So you can see that in 2011, you are getting orders, your sales, it's a sort of strata effect. Your sales are built up from customers you acquired in all the previous years of your existence. And clearly, the more orders and the more business you can be getting from customers you've acquired from previous years, the easier growth is. You know, if you're going into 2011 knowing that your existing customers are going to generate sales, you're in a much happier place. And the more you have to acquire new customers to have a shortfall, the harder your life becomes. So this is absolutely critical. It's critical to understanding how you're going to grow over time and where you should be investing. Should you be investing in acquiring new customers? Should you be investing in retaining your existing customers? How much are customers worth to you? This, for me, is one of these pictures where really retailers fall into two camps. They either understand this, they understand this data, and they understand how they're going to grow over time, or they don't. The next thing is how to make sense of averages. This is an industry that is awash with averages, whether it's average order value, average conversion rate, which is an average. In this case, this is an example of something called bounce rate. And for me, averages are the enemy. Bounce rate is an important metric. It represents if 100 people turn up at your site and 20 of them leave immediately, that's a bounce rate of 20%. It's never a good thing. People basically only ever see one page of your site, wherever they enter. And typically in modern websites, maybe only 30% of people actually enter the home page. People are searching on Google or coming in from a link, so they're entering your sites all over the place. And often retailers will say, well, my bounce rate's 20%. Is that good or bad? I'll give you two scenarios. The first one is every single page on the website has a 20% bounce rate. That's one scenario. And the other scenario is you might look at 1,000 pages, and some pages have a 5% bounce rate, and some pages have an 80% bounce rate, which is more typical. The latter is much more interesting because actually there's something to optimize. And for me, this is the key, is that their variation and volatility, the more the variation, the greater the opportunity there is to optimize. So increasingly what I'm spending a lot of my life doing is de-averaging, taking these metrics that are really not very helpful and actually understanding what's the underlying distribution. How can you understand, if I'm interested in conversion rate and bounce rate, where are the high bounce pages, where are the low conversion pages that I can actually do something about?
4 minutes.
Try.
Yeah.
The trading piece, as I said, in the physical world, when you talk about products, they've either sold or they haven't sold. But in the online world, you have much, much more information. So the first question is, if a product hasn't sold, has anybody looked at it? Is it that people have looked at it but not bought it, or has nobody looked at it? That's the first question. The second question is, if nobody's looked at it, are actually people seeing it in your search results? So is it an issue that this product keeps appearing in the search results but nobody's clicking on it, or is it actually not appearing in the search results? So is it a sort order issue? Is it actually appearing on the website? I have unfortunate that metrics like in-stock.on-site of products that should be on the website but are actually sitting in your warehouse gathering dust. So the key thing here is that actually trading decisions that in the physical world can be done on gut instinct, they're binary, in the online world become very, very analytical. And then so the final piece is then what do you actually do? And for me, said right at the beginning, this is all about measuring inputs. And I'll just give a couple of examples. Over on the right, operationally, a great measure is delivery on promise. Again, it's an Amazon metric. When you click delivery, warehouse market road over. It's the warehouse review that actually to an SLA. Ugliest piece of the jigsaw part, but it's also like great metrics, unretail control, and being a world of metrics that means something to a company but means nothing to the limits. I think it's a good place to end. It's a new world, it's a new set of language. I think the challenge of a lot of people who are trying to